The hosted journalist mayoral forum, in case you didn't know, and we're in the wrong place. We're going to get the show on the road real quick. I wanted to do a few thank yous. Cafe Roca, High Desert Market, Safeway all provided food tonight. Sweet Hall at St. John's has provided the venue. Very nice of them. Thank you. We've had quite a few volunteers helping tonight. I don't want to go into everybody, but our tech crew is up here. You can see him. And our candidates. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Thornton in just a minute, but would you please put your phones on either airplane or silent or something, because we don't want to share your ringtones. And without further ado, this is Mike Thornton. He's going to be the moderator tonight. He will explain what's happening, introduce the candidates, and I hope this is going to be an enjoyable evening for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Really appreciate it. Thank all of you for coming out to St. John's. It's really great to see a full house here, and thanks to all of our listeners and people who are watching on YouTube. And of course, this is being broadcast on 96.1 FM and online, kbrpradio.com. I'm Mike Thornton, host of KBRP's weekly magazine. It is my honor and privilege to be able to be here and be your moderator this evening. So here's the plan. God willing and the creek don't rise, right? We'll be hearing from our candidates in just a couple of minutes. They'll be giving a 3-minute opening statement. After that, we'll be going to our journalists here who will be asking a series of questions. We have a planned break at 6:30. It'll be short. During the interim, there are cards and writing utensils that you can write your questions on. We'll collect those, and then what we will do is we will read your questions in the second half of the show, so that way you get an opportunity to have your questions asked and answered by the candidates. So, the first thing I'd like to do is to introduce our candidates. You all know them. Amy Burkert, Charles Flanagan, and Carl Stetter. So I would like you to give them all another hand for being people who are willing to step up and throw their hats in the ring because we all know what it's like running for political office in Bisbee. Or anywhere, that's true. Without further ado, our candidates for the evening, and we'll start with Amy Burkert.
Good evening. Oh, you got me? There we go. Good evening. Thank you to our hosts, and thank you all for being engaged in Bisbee's future. I'm Amy Burkert, and tonight I want to talk with you about one of Bisbee's biggest challenges. In 1960, 10,000 people lived in Bisbee. By 2000, we were down to 6,000. Now we're below 5,000 people. Over the last 10 years, the expenses in our general fund have gone from just under $6 million to just under $10 million. We're not on a sustainable path. So how do we solve this? My plan is to add about 1,000 people to Bisbee over the next 10 years. And how are we going to do that? Tonight you're going to hear me talk about housing, jobs, and fixing our existing infrastructure to support new people arriving here, as well as all of us who live here now. Currently have wonderful grant writers and wonderful programs like Step Up Bisbee NACO who are addressing some of these challenges. I'll continue to support them and go further. By engaging the experienced, talented, passionate people of Bisbee, we can use commissions and civic assemblies to develop solutions for each ward, by each ward, and for the city as a whole. Using a participatory style of approach to government, City Hall will be a responsive partner to support this community in solving its own challenges from the bottom up. To do this, we need overarching goals that everyone understands. My role is to assemble, encourage, and provide each group with a clear mission so we get actionable results. Whether you're passionate about fire safety, water security, affordable housing, community policing, or opportunities for our young people, we can work together to honor Bisbee's past while we build a healthy, sustainable, and exciting future. Based on our current trajectory, it's clear we can't continue to run this city the way it's been run in the past if we want to survive. We need fresh thinking, a willingness to build on what's already working, and a vision to implement new creative solutions. I'm looking forward to finding those solutions with you.
Good evening, everybody. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to once again speak to the public in one of these forums. I appreciate everybody that's involved in setting this up and participating in it, and as well as the people listening outside. All of your contributions are extremely important. For those of you that don't know me, I moved here in 1985 originally, lived just outside of Bisbee with my wife since 1985. We adopted a bunch of dogs, about 33 over all of the years that we lived together, and we fell in love with Bisbee, which is why we moved here. Upon retiring from the federal courts, my wife and I moved back here just a little over 3 years ago, bought a home, fixed it up, saw what had changed in the community over the years that we had been away in Phoenix for the work that I was doing there, and realized that we are, in fact, as Amy points out, at an existential moment in the history of Bisbee. We do have to do many things to address the problems we face, and we're facing some very difficult times economically. We are looking at the effects of what's happening in DC and how that is going to impact our budget locally. And we are facing challenges with infrastructure, with our ability to find and utilize enough money to take care of the serious issues that the city faces. All of that having been said, I fell in love with Bisbee because of the people of Bisbee. I worked with them for many years. The willingness to drive on, to make something that is lasting is really important. And it's painful to see young people leaving our community and old people leaving our community. It's painful for me to see that we are not able to address our most serious problems, and because of the constant churn in government and funding and priorities that people place, dealing with crises that are existential to our city. The sewage plant, the sewage lines, the water, all of the infrastructure of Old Bisbee. These are things that we have to focus on. And what I bring to the table is experience setting a strategic plan, a budget that is implementable, that people understand, working with and through other people to achieve the goals that we all wish to achieve. And those proven outcomes from my history can be replicated here. They can be replicated by listening, implementing, and working together for a better solution for Bisbee. I thank you.
Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you St. John's Episcopal for having us here. This has been fun having these little forums and being able to see all of the community members come out and be able to participate and talk with everybody. My name is Carl Stetter. I am a good long-time resident at this point of Old Bisbee. I've been here off and on for 17 years, but for the last 10 years, I've been here pretty regularly. And the last 8 years, I've been here straight because I've had a child here. I am raising a daughter in Old Bisbee. I chose this place to raise my daughter because of the people that are here in this room and the people that are outside listening and everybody else that is in this town. I get to go to the farmer's market and let my kid run loose. And if ever there was a moment, now she's big enough that I don't really even worry at all. But when she was 3, 4 years old, she wanted to run off with her friends. And if there was ever a moment that I started to think, well, I haven't seen Louise for a second, where could she be? I would be able to start looking and somebody would see my panicked face and they'd point straight to my daughter and I'd be able to find her. So I chose to run for mayor. I'm doing this because I really do love this community. I am here because I care. You know, I care about the people that are here, and I care about the direction that this town takes. I feel like both of my contestants here on this grand prize event. I feel that that there we are on this precipice in Old Bisbee, that we are standing on this point where a lot of Bisbee is getting older, and a lot of the soul of the community is starting to wane and slowly move on in many ways. That being said, I also see that there is potential here. And while there is a lot of work to be done, we have a community that is growing, maybe not in the way that we see it in Old Bisbee or in Warren or in San Jose, but outside of the city limits, we have a growing, sustainable community that is here. And there's a lot of young people that are coming that use Bisbee as their home base. And so I'm going to talk to you a lot about my ideas tonight, as long as I get the questions that I can answer them directly. But I'm not, I'm also very open to all of you. And if you ever have any questions or concerns or wondering why, somebody young with a kid thinks that this was a good idea, I am happy to answer it at any time. So thank you guys.
Carl Stetter, Charles Flanagan, and Amy Burkert, thank you very much. We want to turn this over now to our 3 journalists, Shaw Poirier, KBRP, Laura Swan, Bisbee Observer, Matt Hickman, Herald Review Media. Thank you all for being here. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you all for coming out again. I bet you're pretty worn out after all these things that you've been going through, event after event. Like you said, you're coming into a time of great financial uncertainty, and your citizens deserve to know if you can meet the challenges. What makes you the best person to head the city for the next 2 years, and what are your strengths and your weaknesses?
Thank you for the question. Let's start with what makes me the best person to lead the city for the next 2 years. I spent 20 years as a CPA, as a certified public accountant, working with my client, working first in a public accounting firm, one of the 8 largest in the world, and then starting my own business with my husband, working with our clients to help them value their businesses, look at how to build value in their businesses, and helping them understand, communicating complex issues with them so that they could understand how they could implement the suggestions that Rod and I were making to them. Some of my strengths are communication, collaboration, an ability to gather people together to work towards a common goal. I work hard. I'm constantly working. I enjoy learning. So these are things that I think will really help me in this process. I intend to treat the position of mayor as a job. It's not something I'm doing in retirement while I collect a pension. This is something that I'm dedicating the next 2 years to this, while my husband has agreed to support me in that endeavor. So thank you to him as well. I guess if I were going to list a couple of weaknesses, I would say I don't tend to always be patient. I like to get things done. I like to keep the ball moving forward. That's probably one of the challenges that I will have in this process, because it will need to be a more methodical movement forward, and I understand that. It'll be a personal growth experience for me. So I think that I'm looking forward to that, and I can't wait to get started.
We're doing questions and answers in alphabetical order. I also want to acknowledge that John Waniak has joined us. So Charles Flanagan, you're up next. Then it's Carl, then it's John to answer this question. Then the question after that will start with Charles Flanagan. Does that make sense? Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
So obviously, I've published a lot of information about this and been talking to a lot of people since I jumped into the race very late, within 3 days of the signatures and the forms having to be submitted. And I will repeat some of that here. I have 38 years of experience, almost all of that in executive leadership positions in government service in the state and in the federal government. I've also worked with post-secondary education in leadership roles. And then I have a background in the performing arts, 14 years spent in the US and in Europe. And all of that background helped me to be successful, along with my education, in both state and federal service, managing large government budgets. And I stress the word government because government is different than the private sector. Then we would be remiss if we didn't recognize that that's true. And I recognize that difference because I oversaw contracts with private sector businesses, and I also oversaw owned and operated businesses or enterprises. And so I was able to work in both fields and work with people in both fields. That government service included overseeing staff, large staffing, medium staffing, and large budgets. So I bring with me a track record of having experienced challenges like having to reduce our budget significantly and at the same time produce better outcomes. And demonstrably, I've been able to accomplish that with and through the teams and the collaborators that we were able to find to accomplish those goals. I recognize whenever I say the word I, please exchange that for we, because I've accomplished nothing without the teams of people with whom I've worked, both inside and outside those systems. When it comes to looking at the budget of the city of Bisbee, I absolutely acknowledge that budgets continue to explode, to grow. We have to take a really careful look at those budgets. We have to figure out what is most essential, what is not, and we have to have communication, open and transparent, before, during, and after we're engaged in any decisions that are going to affect our community. Looking at the budget, it is imperative to understand that that budget is extremely limited, and it is through grants and through other partnerships and by attracting investment in our community that we will be able to expand those. To do that, we have to work with businesses, we have to work with what we have. The tourist industry is extremely important to us, but we must also diversify to the greatest extent possible. Just because we need buffers to protect us in downturns, another COVID comes along, or what's going to happen because of the decisions being made in DC that affect us. As far as weaknesses, similarly, I'm an outcomes-oriented person. Producing outcomes that better the lives of people, that accomplish statutorily required goals is essential to me. It's really important that we achieve those. But I recognize that people have limitations, and that's one of the things I've learned by talking to all of the department heads, the chiefs of police and fire, and many of the employees, some of whom I worked with before in state service, and hearing from them the challenges that they face. Managing those resources in a way that doesn't burn our people out, that allows us to accomplish the goals that the community considers most important, that are also aligned with the core governmental functions. Those are things that we have to pay attention to, and that is my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you repeat the question? It's about strengths, right?
Okay. Okay, what makes you the best person to head the city for the next 2 years, and what are your strengths and weaknesses?
The best person, I'm going to say, I have no qualms about saying that the obvious, that I am young, I'm only so experienced. Am I the best, absolute best person to be mayor of Bisbee? Probably not. There are probably better people. And really, I've said it, if we could combine us all up here into one person, we would have the perfect candidate. We would have somebody that encompasses everything that we need in this town. Um, you know, what makes me a genuine candidate, because I think that is the quality that offer most with this candidacy, is that I am here because I have my roots here. I've put down very substantial roots here in Bisbee, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not planning to be going anywhere, and really truthfully I couldn't if I wanted to. This town is where I want to be, and I've made it so. My experience with the federal government for the last 8 years of my life led me to a place of leadership many times over, where I was managing a whole park at one point over at Coronado because everybody there had quit and I was the last one standing. And I can tell you, I wasn't best qualified to be doing that either, but I took the role and I stood up and everything went fine. We had a big water tank project, painting project, which brought down our water systems for a solid 2 months and had to be maintained just right. And it was careless in the park's decision in that moment, but we had no other option. So I was there and I stood up, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm here and I'm standing up for my daughter and for really all of you, because I want this community to continue as it is. My best qualifications, come from my background in the National Park Service, but also in the fact that I've spent many years riding a bicycle by myself. I was able to become very comfortable with who I am and my decisions in life and my choices in life. And that makes me, in this role of leadership, an asset because I can bring people together. I can hear people from all sides. And not only that, I can charm the pants off of many of you. um, it's just one of my strengths. No, but my role with the Park Service has been this role of leadership, and I've led a trail crew, as well as taken charge of many large projects within the Park Service. I know a lot about infrastructure, and I see a lot of the failing infrastructure. I was a registered water operator in the state of Arizona. I know about water problems. I know about sewer treatment problems. I know how to get maintenance done and how it needs to be done and how to do it right. And right now with what Bisbee is facing in terms of our antiquated systems that we have here that are slowly failing, it's one of those things that becomes pertinent when at the most inopportune times. When there was the fire in downtown Bisbee and they went to turn on the hydrants, the fire hydrants, and there was no water pressure. There was no water to come out. They had to run 3 hoses from one fire hydrant. And these are things that slowly get neglected when we don't have somebody who is actively paying attention to them. And we have somebody that is too focused on all the other aspects of Bisbee. I want us to be a stronger, better community. I want us to be a sustainable community. I want us to build ourselves up so that, what we have here as our strengths, our community that is so starved across this country. You can go all around this country. I've done it by bicycle. I've seen a lot of it. And what we have here is unique and special. And we have the possibility to do amazing things here.
All right, thank you guys. What makes me qualified? No different than would make any of you qualified. We're all citizens here, right? And I have experience in the military, but also is the fact that I'm going to stand with the people, right? I'm not going to get voted in and then go hide from everybody and never show my face again, right? Because this is your community. It belongs to you. You live here. And, so it's up to us to run it together. I've worked mostly in security, a security contractor for the government after I got out. So, I'm strong enough to stand up against the machine and stand with the people. So you can't have an out of control government, because big government and big freedom will never, it never goes together. You could only have one or the other. So you got to have a manageable government and with maximum freedoms. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to represent you and you, every one of you guys, even if you don't vote for me. So my heart's in it. I love Bisbee. I moved here. I'm a homeowner here. So, and I'm also here to stay. And, you know, I couldn't say it much better than the rest of these people. So, you know, we're all qualified in our own ways. And any of you people could be qualified if you wanted to. And that's really it. Thank you.
What's your name?
Yeah, Johnny Waniak.
Let us take our little bit of feedback going on. Let's go to our next media questioner, Laura Swan of the Bisbee Observer. Laura, go ahead.
Can you hear? If elected, what steps will you recommend the council and the city take to put the city in a better financial position? If cuts are part of the financial solution, what departments would you propose cutting budgets in and why?
So, hello. So thank you for that question. So I've commented on this a number of times in my public meetings with folks and in prior forums. One of the things that I note that we lack is the basic foundation of a true strategic plan, which is something that I learned both in school and then through the work that I did throughout the state and the federal government. And what I'm talking about is we have a general plan which has been created based on feedback from the community, which is a good foundation. What it lacks is what a true strategic plan has, which is setting of goals, objectives, tasks, and timelines with people associated as primary for each of those. And then aligning that strategic plan, those goals, objectives, tasks, and timelines with the available budget and with the core functions of city government, which is public safety, and that's not just police and fire, that is infrastructure issues that are life and safety related, services, infrastructure, policy making, and most importantly, and what many people forget, is ensuring the fiscal security of our community into the future. That means building what exists here so that it gets as much support as it possibly can be given so that it can be successful, and also diversifying to the greatest extent possible. I've been asked the question before, what cuts would you make? Well, obviously, I've noted a couple of people sitting in the room when the budget was discussed by the mayor and council and the city manager, and it's been finalized. Our projected budget has been finalized, and I take really no issue with how that has occurred, but I will tell you this, that it would be foolish to recommend changes immediately before you are actually in the position and you're able to work with the city manager and the staff to learn as much detail as you possibly can. And I've never walked into a job thinking I knew how to do it before I learned about it from the people doing it. And I was acting in the role of the position I was promoted to, and virtually every promotion I received throughout my 38 years in state and federal government. And being in that position, I thought I knew what I was walking into, but when you are in the position permanently, there is a big difference. You learn other things that you may not know. That's one of the things that my experience has taught me. But I do believe that if I look at the budget, how much of it we are spending and where we're getting it from, taxes being a huge source of income for us, which you would anticipate, certainly. But you can't keep taxing the public to the point that they can no longer bear it. And as our population drops, that tax burden increases. So you have to find other ways to find the resources to be able to do the job. And if I look at how much we're spending on things like public safety, which is logical, it is the top priority of every municipal government, it's 61% of our budget. And when you take a look at administrative costs, it's 22% of our budget. And yet we're spending 6% on streets and maintenance and infrastructure. And there are things that we have to look at closely and determine what should we be spending this money on? But that strategic plan with the structure of goals, objectives, tasks, timelines, people associated with those so that people know who to go to, being informed by the community to create that, communicating to the public what it is we have to spend and what we're spending it on. And then there's, of course, the wish list of the things. Our budget looks a lot bigger than it really is. $10.4 million is what we have in the general fund, but we're hopeful that we'll get a lot more money to spend on things that we desperately need. But we can't always rely on those things. So we have to, and to Carl's point, we can't allow things to fall by the wayside. We can't allow a 20-plus-year-old wastewater treatment plant to be in such disrepair that we have to replace it in the relatively near future, and it costs us an arm and a leg to keep going. We have to find a way to make the right investments so that we have that fiscal security into the future. Thank you.
I think that Charles Flanagan's response to this was pretty spot on. Getting into a position like mayor and to come in and say that absolutely I've got all the ideas of where I would be cutting the budget would be pretty foolish because I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I have looked at the budget and there are glaring problems within it that I think we all can recognize. But I can't absolutely say that I'm going to sit here and just cut public safety funds because it's such a high bar of our budget. I'm going to have to see what exactly is making it that, right? Any one of us is going to have to go through this learning curve, as Charles Flanagan said. I think this is one of the first times in a while that we've had somebody, or we haven't had a single person running for mayor that wasn't on the council before. And I do recognize that a lot of you have mentioned that to me, and I'm sure the other candidates as well, that why don't you run for council first, right? So for us, we're going to be starting off in this very open space. A $10 million budget seems like a lot, but when you start breaking it down, and like Charles Flanagan said, when you have large things coming up, like a sewer treatment plant, that budget goes away really fast. Just to get our water tank painted at Coronado was around $2.4 million, right? That's not a cheap thing. And there are grants available to us, but we don't know if the federal government will always be available to us to provide those. We'll have to go after different funding sources. We have a great participating community that does provide a lot to a lot of people here and a lot of our resources. I think we have one of the more giving communities possible. I mean, you look at like what Megan Connolly has done with Bisbee Bikeways and how much she was able to raise from everybody here. We have people here that have participated so much to get us to where we are, and that's one of the things that I think makes our community the strongest, is that we are a community of participators, that when we need to help fund the pool to keep it open, we're there to have the block party and celebrate and throw our money in, right? These are great qualities in a town. This is why I want to try to hold on to our soul. So I don't have a straight answer for you on what I would cut necessarily from our government, but I do know that working within our budget is the most important thing. And if we cannot work within our budget, we are going to have to find ways to cut. And like Flanagan said, we can't keep taxing people to no end. That's just not going to work. And more people will leave. It's already hard to find a place to live here as a young person. So it's only going to get harder if taxes continue to rise. Thank you.
All right, so yeah, as they said, I agree with a lot of that. Also, our population has been in decline, and as our population declines, our government has grown. They hired lots of people over the past year. I would immediately do a hiring freeze and see where we stand, but I would also like to throw in with the county where we can in some of the public safety thing. I don't know why why we need a large police department ourselves when we could maybe throw in. So, yeah. And have some of the sheriff's department, because we all pay county and state tax anyway. So we should throw it in with them where we can. Maybe look at selling the garbage truck in the company to a private company if it would be cheaper, right? We don't have to. We could look into that and get some real recycling going on, right? There's lots of things. So, but ultimately, if I become the mayor, I won't be the chief executive. You know that, right? So this town is really, it's run by the city manager. So I could be influential in helping them, but I won't be able to just make those decisions by myself. So thank you.
Would be made solely, I said what recommendations. Thank you. Just want to make sure we were on the same page. No, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Thank you.
Laura, would you mind repeating the question for me,
Sure.
please?
If elected, what steps will you recommend the council and the city take to put the city in a better financial position? If cuts are part of the financial solution, what departments would you propose cutting budgets in and why?
Thank you. I don't think that starting the conversation by looking at cuts is the way that we want to approach this. Nobody in Bisbee wants their services cut. Nobody in Bisbee wants more taxes. So the solution to this is to grow our tax base. We need to look at how we can add population to the city to help spread our costs more evenly over a larger number of people. Our city workers are working hard, and they are doing everything that they can within their power to do the things that we want them to do. So I want to appreciate them for that. They're working really hard over there. I think we have an opportunity. I mentioned civic assemblies earlier. I don't know if everybody's familiar with what that means. It means that we come together as a community to discuss sort of like a picture kind of a task force, maybe a 1 day or maybe up to like 3 days to discuss a specific topic. I'd like the budget to be one of those topics. I want to present a citizen-friendly budget so we actually understand where our money is being spent. And then I'd like us to develop suggestions as a community to take back to City Council and to City Hall to make sure that our values are reflected in the places that our dollars are being spent. I think also that we need to be looking at a longer-term plan than just 1 year at a time. I've spoken with Chief Richardson over at the fire station, for example, and he said that there really isn't a long-term plan for replacing the equipment, that we really are only looking at things 1 year at a time. How would our own personal finances work if we only looked 1 year ahead? It's not a holistic approach to running a city. And we need to be looking longer term down the road to plan for the $77,000 of expenses that are still needed to finish fixing our pool, to plan to replace our fire equipment when it's going to be no longer useful, to look ahead and plan for the other costs and expenses that are going to be coming up, rather than waiting for an emergency to happen and then have to hustle to figure out where the money's going to come from. So those are some of the things I would like to do. I also would like, I've mentioned before, zero-based budgeting. I think we've all heard people who work in bureaucracies say, when they get to the end of the year, I've got to hurry up and spend this money in my budget or I'm not going to get it again next year. I don't want people to be incentivized to look for a way to spend money. I want us to have to go through the budget every year, justify the expenses that we're proposing, and make sure that the resources are being allocated appropriately to those tasks and goals that we have before us, what we've agreed to as a community. Thank you.
And we'll go to our third media questioner, Matt Hickman of Herald Review Media.
So when we get to talking about Bisbee and growing the economy and thereby growing the population base, inevitably the imperative becomes, how do you diversify the economy beyond tourism? So my question is, practically and specifically, what are some industries or things that can diversify the economy besides tourism?
So, I think that we actually carry a lot of our industry here that can be more capitalized on. I think there's opportunity to expand, but We are an arts community. I think I just recently today saw an article from on Facebook. Of course, that's where we get all of our news from, and basically calling us a cultural hub. Right? We are we are this experience for people, and not only that, but we're a place, a refuge for artists. And I have traveled all around this country, as I've mentioned, and I've been to many of the places that have been gentrified right before gentrification. If you've ever heard of the word gentrification, it's kind of a dirty word across much of the United States right now. But I was in Austin and Portland and all these places right before it really took off and you really lost the community. And these places were cool. There were a lot of artists, there were a lot of wonderful young people creating things because it was an affordable place to be, right? But once all of the people that wanted to move there started moving in, and people with money started moving in, and they didn't provide the infrastructure for the artists to find places to be, they started losing their places to be, and they got moved out pretty fast. And that lost the soul of the community. I've been to those places now after being there right at the cusp of it, and a lot of the soul of those places has been lost. And I don't want to lose the soul of Bisbee. I want to make sure that we are emphasizing our cultural hub here. The fact that we have artists that sell art across the country, but we don't provide them with a really genuine space here in Bisbee. We've had some great opportunities, great programs put together. The Bisbee Arts Commission does wonderful work. It tries really hard. And I would love to see them expand. And I would love to see us be able to really start pushing the arts here, because that is an industry that we have going for us. We have a great music industry budding out here. We just had Roadrunner Studios open up, and we have wonderful musicians here. We have this opportunity, but we seem to ignore that in this idea that we just need more tourism, and we need more revenue, and we need more money. I know, Bisbee is in desperate need of money, and the arts isn't the only solution. We have the Bisbee Bikeways and the pathway the rails to trail system that's going to go all the way to Nevada. That's going to be a huge boost, because there are a lot of people that like to ride bicycles nowadays. When I first started, it wasn't popular. When I did my last tour, I ran into so many people doing it. It's a very cool experience to ride a bicycle long distance, and people are loving to do it. And having Bisbee as being one of the spots that you could stop in or end in is a pretty awesome experience. I think we could easily sell that as well. On the whole, I know that we have the opportunity here. I would love to see the trades expand a little bit more here. I would love to see trades programs start set up during the summer for our young children, so that they can expand their knowledge and start to develop their abilities to do something. And that's not necessarily to keep them here. I want them to be able to go out and see the world, but I want them to want to come back here and bring their skills back. So that's my main goal, is to really emphasize what we have here, because it is what makes us the town that we are and what makes us enticing to the whole country.
All right, so yeah, I agree with a lot with what he said. Basically, we should lean into the arts. Maybe we could reach out to Cochise County College. I don't know why they don't have an arts department here in Bisbee. Would be nice. It'd also be nice if we could do things for younger kids to come here. Maybe take an art class, spend a week here, right? All inclusive, place to stay, do art in Bisbee, learn. Also to branch out to other things. So, Freeport McNamara is planning on doing some limited mining here, right? That could be a job enticement for people here. Also developing Warren more, right? The other communities, San Jose, can't forget about them. San Jose is actually the largest voter block here, so, and they awfully get forgotten a lot. So, yeah, it's just reach into the arts. That's what I want to do.
When we talk about expanding our industry and diversifying our economy, we need to keep in mind that we need right-sized industries that are in keeping with the character of our community. We've been very lucky. Bisbee's been very lucky. We already have our healthcare industries. We've got our schools, our county, our city. We've got local businesses. We've got a blooming film industry here. If you don't know about that, that's something to go out and learn about. It's a wonderful addition to the community. We need to focus on expanding our reputation as a wonderful destination. When we talk about visitors coming to Bisbee, I think a lot of people think that we have to choose between the quality of life of the people who live here and catering to visitors. I see it completely differently. I look at our visitors and think, I know, because I was one, that I came here and loved this place because of the way it made me feel. And who generates that feeling? It's the people who live here, who create that vibe, that Bisbee vibe that we love. So if we can improve the quality of life of the people that live here already, we can thereby make Bisbee even more magnetic to our visitors when they come. And potentially, they steep in it long enough, they decide they want to live here, which gets back to the original goal of having more people move to Bisbee. We need to look for right-sized events for our city to help promote people coming here. In addition to that, I've talked before about trade schools. I'd like to see historic renovation as an option for people to come here and learn about that. I think sustainable home building is another opportunity that we have because of all of the sustainable building that's going on out in the county, to have people come here and take classes to learn how to do that. I think wellness retreats would be another opportunity for people to be drawn to Bisbee. I've said many times before, I think that remote workers are an option for this city. If we could get some more stable, faster internet options, I think that that's a viable opportunity. If you can live anywhere and work from that place, why wouldn't you choose to live in Bisbee? The other thing that I've mentioned at the last forum, and I just learned a little bit more tonight, that there is a program at the high school where they are teaching some entrepreneurship. I'd like to see a program developed where we have so many talented people in this town who have such interesting life experiences that they could share with entrepreneurs who are looking to begin their first business or maybe to start a side hustle as they work their full-time job. We could help them develop business plans. We could help them look at marketing strategy. We could give them basic bookkeeping advice. The businesses in this town work so close to the bone. We don't have a lot of chain stores and chain businesses in Bisbee because there's not a lot of wealth to extract here. The local businesses that are operating here are working on really thin margins. If we had an entrepreneurship coaching, mentoring program that could help them increase their revenues or their profits by 5 or 10%, that's the difference between succeeding and not. And those are the businesses that are likely to be able to provide jobs in this community.
So thank you. I'd like to start first by saying we need to reinforce what we already have before we start doing other things. It's very clear that we have to do a much better job of marketing, and I'm hoping that process is moving forward, working with businesses to ensure that we support the tourism industry to the greatest extent possible. We also need to think a little bit about the fact that the businesses, and I've spoken to business owners, have not felt a lot of support from the city, and find a way to work with them to make sure that they are as successful as they can be with as few hurdles in the way to achieving that success as possible without stepping on state or federal regulations. But I've talked about diversification and recognize, I'm not foolish, I recognize a population of under 5,000 people is not going to attract a very large industry to come here. And not only that, we may not want a particular large industry to come here because it may be totally inconsistent with our history and our culture. It may not fit in the community, but there are some opportunities for us to do things like that. In the state, I was able to work with a hydroponics company, and that hydroponics company uses water extremely wisely. And currently, they're getting a lot of labor that they're having to transport to distant locations. We are in a fairly good location for an opportunity like hydroponics to come in. Let's not also forget that most of our tax revenue comes from areas outside of what we would traditionally consider, the business district. Safeway, having Safeway here is critical to our community and its continuation. The hospital, without a hospital, we wouldn't survive as a community. The hospital employs almost 600 people, and the county and the city employ people as well. And these are all people that contribute to our environment. What we can also do is think about enterprise industries. So we already have one with the mine tour that Amy and I were just talking about this yesterday. I can't even remember what day it is. And this is a great opportunity for us to think about how we could potentially do things in-house. I'll be frank, I don't know if this is a viable option, but I'm going to throw it out there. Both Bisbee and Douglas used to produce their own asphalt, and we both shut those plants down. I'm presuming because somebody thought privatization was a good idea. I've worked against privatization. I successfully prevented privatization of inmate health care for 3 years. And unfortunately, when I was promoted to another agency, we were privatized. We, the taxpayers, pay for that substandard service, and we pay for the decisions that those businesses make. We have to be very careful about public-private partnerships and the risks that they pose to our community. But why could we not do that again, rather than buying asphalt from Tucson and paying to ship it down here? That would produce very few jobs, but it would produce some jobs. And if we were successful enough at it, why could we not sell that asphalt to pave not only our own streets, but the streets of surrounding communities? If we had something like hydroponics, or they now have something called aeroponics, which uses even less water, here on city property, that would employ people locally in an industry that we frankly should be supporting, agriculture. These are things that are historical to our area and that could help benefit our community. The locavore movement is a good example of that. And these are very successful businesses that would increase the tax revenue for our cities. And there are many others that we can explore, but I would agree that we have to absolutely support what we have, which is tourism, and then the events that draw people to us, and keep supporting that. We have to find ways to use people locally and the city will absolutely have to work to be able to create affordable housing that doesn't follow a typical model, because nobody can afford a home that sells for $185,000, $285,000, $385,000 based on the traditional model. So what other opportunities are there? This is not my idea. Somebody suggested to me, what about producing our own adobe and building homes that are affordable for people, sourcing local labor, and working with the city to make sure that the codes will allow for us to do something like that. So we have to be innovative. We have to find ways to expand and diversify our economy, just as, if nothing else, a protection against the continued loss of our population and the eventuality of a severe economic downturn or another pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists and our candidates. Fulsome answers are really good. We've got about 7 minutes to a hard break. So if somebody has a question that they can answer, that will be able to be answered in a lightning round type manner, we'd love to have that happen. And we'll be taking audience questions after the break. And I will ask you all to be more succinct during that period so we can get more questions in.
This is should be able to be answered pretty quickly. Who contributed to your campaign? Individuals, businesses, and organizations. Please provide a list or information.
Actually, I technically would.
Is it John? Oh, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, John.
All right, that's pretty easy. Not very many people. So 95% of it was me. The other was my friend Nolan. He handed out flyers.
It's primarily been from the bank of Amy and Rod, but I have had several contributors, including Danielle and Sloan Bouchevet, Joseph Lewis, Petey and Chuck Conklin, and probably about a dozen others along the way.
I fully intended to be completely self-funded. I did not solicit any donations whatsoever. However, some people did force some money upon me, and I ended up accepting that. Jack and Pat Porter contributed to my campaign, and also Doug Dunn contributed to my campaign, and Scott Kuntz contributed to my campaign. And then I had a good friend who's an artist, a graphic artist, who donated $400 worth of his time to help me design the palm cards and signs that I put up. And that's the totality of it.
I am self-funded. You guys will see my handmade signs up pretty soon. Look for the Mickey Mouse.
If we can get one more quick
I think
one
we can
in,
give,
that'd be
this would be a
great.
fun one to go to break on. Bisbee being Bisbee, a lot of national and international headlines kind of make their way into city council meetings. Two that come to mind are obviously the attempt to condemn the Israeli war against Palestine, and the other was trying to get the city to not allow ICE, not cooperate with ICE agents. Obviously, these things were kind of tabled because of fear of retribution and other things, but as mayor, you're going to be in charge of these meetings and the tone and of all that. What do you think of that, and how would you handle that? I know it's a tough, quick one, but...
Well, I think you have to handle it professionally. You have to make sure that you're not taking things personally and that you need to lead by example. So in those heated situations, I think you have to keep your cool, keep your head, and be respectful to everybody who has so that everybody has an opportunity to be heard.
So I completely agree. I've been taught approach determines response, and also, to be dispassionate and realize that the decisions that we make are not driven by my personal agenda. They're driven by the community. They're driven by the council, and decided upon by the council. And to keep that in mind. However, I want to get to the heart of your question, and that is, ideologically, I completely agree that we should be speaking out against what is happening in Gaza, and I completely agree that we should be speaking out against what is happening with ICE in our country. It is frightening to me that we're seeing the rise of fascism in our country. However, as the mayor, you do set the agenda, but you are, actually 2 council people can help set the agenda. They can add items to the agenda as well. So the agenda may be set, but the discussion and the work that has to be done needs to happen amongst the entirety of the council. And those decisions need to be done dispassionately and considering all options. I fear that we make decisions because of fear, and I regret that we may do that. But we do have to consider the best interests of the entirety of the community when we're making decisions, and at the same time stand up for the values we believe in.
I agree entirely with Charles Flanagan. We are a council-run government, and the most I can do is set the agenda and set the tone. How best do I do that? I mean, I've moderated between 2 opposing views many a times in leadership at the National Park Service. I had a supervisor and a facility manager that absolutely loathed each other, and I had to sit in, and they had entirely different views politically and everywhere else. And I sat there and moderated and was able to bring about an actual positive change between the 2 of them. The best we can do is, as mayor, is to feed the what you guys are feeling, to be that person that represents you all, to be able to hear what you all are hearing, and to be able to set the tone based on what the community wants. And that would be my goal always. And I 100% agree with Charles Flanagan and his statement about what's happening in Gaza, as well as what's happening with ICE and many other things going on in the world right now that we could be standing up and speaking up against.
So my interest is solely you guys. I have nothing to do. It goes on internationally, and as far as fighting the federal government, I would go to jail because there's something called the Supremacy Clause. So I'll solely be focused on our community, and that's it.
You guys are absolutely fantastic. We are at the bottom of the hour. Thanks for our candidates, Amy Berger, Charles Flanagan, Carl Stetter, and John Waniak, for being with us in the first hour. And of course, they will be with us in the second hour of the program. We're taking a 5-minute break, which will mean I'll have to vamp for a little while. And we also want to make sure that we get question cards from the audience, so that way we can ask the candidates your questions as well. KBRPradio.com. And also perhaps you might be watching this all on KBRP's YouTube channel. We are at St. John's Episcopal Church here in Bisbee for our mayoral forum. You can give St. John's a hand. Which is a perfect segue for me to say that I was just told that any donations that are collected this evening are going to be split between KBR